you dorks, this is Gunnar Hansen, Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and you are listening to The Dorkening.
Hi, I'm Brian Johnson, and although you probably accidentally stumbled across it and have no idea why you're watching it, you are in fact watching The Dorkening.
Hello, this is Tom Kenny, voice actor, the voice of the Ice King on Adventure Time, and SpongeBob SquarePants. Ah, meow. Oh, Gary the Snail, too. Hey, guess what you're filling your eye holes and ear holes with? The Dorkening! Oh, I love the Dorkening. Very popular in Ooh, and Bikini Bottom.
Hi, I'm Lou Ferrigno. You're watching The Dorkening. And you know what? You don't like me when I get angry, so don't get me angry. You better keep watching The Dorkening.
Hey guys, this is Felissa Rose, and you're watching The Dorkening.
Hey guys, it's Courtney Palm. We're shooting Death House, and you're watching The Dorkening.
This is Anthony Michael Hall, and you're watching The Dorkening. Stay tuned, my friend's going to show you what entertainment's all about, baby.
The Dorkening.
The Dorkening and all affiliated shows are not intended for anyone under the age of 18. The following may contain discussions or scenes that have adult situations, graphic violence, nudity, strong sexual content, and graphic language. This show is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised.
Rise and shine, my sinners. When Father Evil starts his day, he gets a little deadly. Deadly Grounds coffee has the richest, smoothest flavor you'll find anywhere. It's sinfully delicious. Once you go deadly, you never go back. Order yours at getdeadly.com. Coffee's so good, it's scary.
And we are now live for another episode of Indie Creator Spotlight, powered by the Dorkening Podcast Network. We have an awesome show, as always, scheduled for you. And with us, as always, we have Sir Patrick. How's it going, sir?
Going all right. Very excited for this evening's show. We got some great guests lined up, as we always do. So I'm excited to chat with them.
I know. Same here. I know you're especially excited, but we've been chatting all week about it. Also with us is Philip from Dark Discussions Podcast. How is it, my friend?
Good. Looking forward to talking about a great movie with some of the people in front of the screen and behind the screen.
Totally. So, Patrick, would you do the honors of introducing our awesome guests?
All right. Yes. Today we are discussing the film Haven's End. And with us, as Phil said, we have some folks in front of and behind the camera. We have director Chris Ethridge. Chris, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Doing all right. Thanks for joining us. We have writer Michael Harper. Michael, how are you?
I'm great.
I love your posters in the background.
Thank you.
And we are joined by lead actor Catherine Tabor. Catherine, thank you for joining us today.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having us.
Oh, this is awesome. Catherine, you are no stranger to independent films and independent franchises. You're part of a small independent. I don't know if anyone's really familiar with this, but I had to look it up. Star Wars. I'm not familiar with that. Is that big?
You might see on Kickstarter or something. They're just kind of trying to really get it off the ground, and
it's like a crowdfunding thing.
Yeah, exactly. Just really hoping that people take to it. We're still not sure yet how it's going to turn out, but yeah, it's this thing called Star Wars.
Yeah. Folks might recognize your voice from the Clone Wars, where you play Padme Amidala, who is one of the most important characters in the entire saga, so to speak.
I'm not going to disagree with you.
Well, it's funny because you carry a lot of those characteristics from Padme into your acting and your performance in this role as Allison. Padme is no slouch when it comes to combat tactics, and I think Chris and Michael did a great job of crafting these characters, and you executed your role perfectly, I think, as did the other folks. So the first thing I'm going to ask, and this is, we'll start with Michael. I'm going to start with you. When it came to writing these characters, when it came to creating the script, what was your initial vision as far as how it was going to be portrayed on screen? Like, how did you come up with these characters and bring them to life?
Wow, that's a great question. It was, they say necessity is the mother of invention. And I had produced, I was a producer on Chris's last feature before Haven's End. And we had really loved working with each other. And Kat had a role in that film. And we fell in love with Kat as soon as she was on set. And so it had been a while since we had shot something, and Chris called me out of the blue one day and said, "Hey, I'm going to shoot something by the end of the year. Do you have anything?" And I said, not really. He said, "Can you pull something together?" And I said, "Sure." And he said, "Okay, great, because I've got a meeting with Kat Taylor tomorrow at like 4:00 in the afternoon. And we would love to have you pitch whatever it is that you have." And I went, "Oh, great, thanks." So I knew, Chris and I had been working together. We knew that we wanted to do something together. I knew that Chris and Kat had been kind of having the same kind of discussion about working together again in the future. And so I wrote the role of Allison Olsen for Kat before we offered it to her. So I don't know what I would have done if she had said no. But luckily I pulled something together. I don't even remember what I pitched, but I pulled something together and they said, "Yeah, that sounds great." And so I wrote Allison. Specifically, Allison, I wrote for Kat, and I wrote for things that, as a fan of Kat, I wanted to see Kat do.
I think it came out very well. Now, moving on to Chris, and then Catherine, I'll get to you after. Chris, knowing that you have chemistry with both Catherine and Michael, how was it? The process of taking the character that he had created specifically for her, and integrating it with these other characters who may not have had specific actors in mind when they were written.
Right. So yeah, that's a great question. I try. One of my big things as a director is casting is. I mean, I really do. There's a kind of an adage, casting is 90% of filmmaking. I certainly lean into that. I spend a lot of time making sure that the right people are in front of the camera. We got really lucky on this one. We got really lucky. Like, everyone was fantastic, and it wasn't a particularly difficult search. My last film, we did have a couple roles that took a while to find the right person. But on this one, yeah, it's just I took Michael's script and figured out, kind of what I'm looking for out of these people, and particularly how they're gonna interact with each other. And then, I had a couple other people in mind. So sometimes I'll, if I think someone I already have worked with, or in at least one case here wanted to work with, would be right for the role, I'll just offer it to them, and see if they're interested. And then we also did a small casting call. We had a casting director who brought in a bunch of people for a couple of the roles, and we found a couple of rock stars just by pure, by the fortune of them showing up at the casting call. So, but that's generally for me. I try really hard to make sure the casting is right up front, because it's a lot. it's a lot easier to do small corrections and small adjustments and work with the right actor than to try and get the wrong actor to do the right thing.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So now, Catherine, to you, the next step in this process was bringing the character to life, knowing that Michael and Chris had you in mind when they created this character and they pitched it to you. How was it bringing her to life? Were you able to draw on some of your other experience? Like, because I definitely saw a little bit of the Star Wars stuff, but that's an animated thing, so you're not really doing all of those things. What kind of training or prior experience have you had to prepare for this role? Because it seemed to be a very physically demanding role.
Yeah, that was one of the really fun things about it, actually. And I think what Michael was talking about, I think when he had me in mind and being a great writer like he is, Allison had some essential characteristics that I think are sort of maybe what you see in Padme too, and things that are important to me, actually. So the whole thing about integrity and doing the right thing, that was a big theme in the movie. And that was just something that, again, it's very Padme-esque. It's also very important to me. So it was easy to step into that part with the writing. The physical stuff was actually really new, but something I had wanted to do my whole life. So we got to do stunts. We got to work with weapons. Even in the trailer, just the shot with the flare, like that's probably going to be one of my favorite things that I've ever done, just because it was so cool. So some of the physical stuff was really new, and that was exciting and challenging. But getting to play the character the way that she was written and the story, that part it just felt really comfortable because it was perfectly designed for me by Michael. And I do have to say, in agreement with what Chris said, also, when you're doing an independent film like this and you have a short shooting schedule and you sometimes have things that, make life more difficult, like bad weather and unexpected schedule changes, who you cast, not only that they're good actors, but that they're nice people to work with and are happy and excited to be there is so essential, because Chris did such a great job, Chris and Michael, picking people to put in this film who were also really nice people. So we just had a really good time.
Excellent. Yeah, so I think I've monopolized enough of the time so far. Leo and Phil, you guys.
Totally. Actually, you know what? We haven't really discussed it that much. We're talking about the movie Haven's End, which is out on VOD and physical media, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's out right now, and I got a bunch of information, show notes down below or above, depending on where you're watching or listening to us. Chris, would you like to give a synopsis of the movie? And then, if you don't mind, I'd like to play the trailer.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So Haven's End is a on the edge of the apocalypse, sort of not quite post-apocalyptic trailer or feature, and it's basically about a doctor and her friends who flee the big city of Atlanta in the middle of the city exploding, and all kinds of terroristic style activity. And they race. They kind of run to some family land out in the rural Georgia countryside, only to find that the Dr. Allison, her estranged brother, is already there, and then the really weird stuff starts happening. Strange lights and other oddities, and it turns out that maybe they're not as safe there as they thought they would be.
And I've been preparing this joke all week, and Pat will appreciate it, which is, I knew that the Vulcans had an apocalypse last year, but I didn't think Atlanta would get it too.
Here we go. Even then.
Guys, are you seeing this?
In what appears to be an extremely well-coordinated terror attack, the greatest cities across the nation and now around the world have all come under fire within moments of each other.
When the cities fell, we ran. No one knew who attacked us or why. Multiple terrorist organizations claimed responsibility. The president declared martial law. Far away from the chaos, we prepared to weather the storm. We thought we were safe. We were wrong.
Here we go.
Cover fire only, Harry. No casualties?
There we go. Haven's End, and it's out now on VOD and physical media. And like I said, information show notes down below or up above. We urge you definitely check it out. Before I pass it over to Philip, I'm just going to ask, ain't ready for Marines yet? Whose idea was that?
That was in the script. I put that in there. I had a buddy of my dad's, two buddies of my dad's. One was a Marine and one was from the Army, and they just said the worst, most awful things to each other about their respective branches of the military. And so when I was writing Harry, and Harry is without a doubt my favorite character I've ever created or ever written. People say there's a lot of me in there, and it's true. But I was looking up. I had to look up all kinds of jokes, and so I found "Ain't Ready for Marines Yet," and I said that's the one. So yeah, we already had the idea that Derek was going to be former Army, and so we decided to make. I decided to make Harry a former Marine and let them kind of go toe to toe.
Now, you said there's a bit of Harry in you. Are you a prepper as well? No. no. I just I like to think that I'm as manly as Harry and Rob Prolgo, the actor who played Harry. But what's true is I just like to cuss just as much as Rob does, and
it's a sign of intelligence.
It is. It really is.
Yeah. Philip, my friend, what do you got for us?
Yes, I have a question for Catherine. In the scenes with Anthony Nguyen, I was like shocked how huge he was, because he like skies over you. So I had to look up his height and your height on the internet, and I saw that he was an inch shorter than me at 6'2", and you're 5'3". But even for me, who's 6'3", he was very imposing and like a giant. How is it working with someone that is literally 11 inches taller than you and that intimidating?
He's not intimidating to me. That's what's so funny. And I'm one of those people that I have zero idea that I'm short. So it's not really until I see it on camera, I'm like, oh, I'm a lot smaller than he is. But I do think there were a couple of times where we probably had to adjust for that with the actual shooting aspect. I think I was standing on a couple of boxes at any given time, but he's such a nice guy that he didn't end up ever feeling imposing to me.
Yeah, he's a big guy, and you guys played well together. I do have a question for Mike. Did you choose Georgia specifically because you're in that area to write the screenplay, or is it because Chris, you're there, or is it specifically because Hollywood gets some tax breaks in Georgia? I was just curious how it was set in Georgia, say, versus somewhere else in the country.
A little from column A, a little from column B, a little from column C. Everything is shooting now in and around Atlanta, and it's been kind of cool to see Hollywood set more things in Atlanta because they know that that's where they're going to shoot it. I'm an Atlanta boy. Chris is an Atlanta boy, and Kat's originally from Georgia, and so it just kind of made sense. And also, it was fun for me because I got to blow up a lot of the Atlanta landmarks.
CDC.
We blow up the CDC on
I
page 6
mean.
of the script, but we also blow up like the Big Chicken, and part of Spaghetti Junction falls. And it's just it was for me. It was I know the city and I love the city, and so why not blow it up?
Mike, what is the Big Chicken? Because I did hear that on the newscaster, and I said, "What the heck's a Big Chicken?" And I just let it go by. But
the Big Chicken is it's a KFC. It is literally a Kentucky Fried Chicken restaurant, and they have built an addition that goes up from the building, and it is literally a giant chicken head, and it's mechanical and does this, and the eyes roll, and so yeah, it's a landmark in Marietta, just outside of Atlanta, and I wanted to blow it up, so I did.
It seems like a worthwhile endeavor to spend money on.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah, of course.
I have too much money. What should I get? I don't know, an animatronic chicken head? Brilliant, Steve.
So what is it with blowing up the CDC? Because you guys blew it up. It was also blown up in Walking Dead. Do people in Atlanta hate the CDC being there, or?
Well, I think it makes sense as a target. It really does make sense as a target, and so yeah, I mean, it was like a huge plot point in the first season of The Walking Dead. They had to get to the CDC because they were hoping to get some answers, and I wanted to take that out of the equation really quickly. So yeah, you can't go to the CDC asking, "Hey, what's going on?"
Yeah.
Chris, I have a question for you. This film is multi subgenres of horror, sci-fi, as main genres, and I was curious how you were able to juggle the script being that way, where it was an apocalypse, it was a cabin in the woods, it was maybe like, if not a zombie film similar. I mean, how did you juggle it all together to get it to work as well as it did?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and and it started obviously with the script. Michael is aware that I don't like straight single genre stuff. I mean, and it's not true. I love it. For my projects, I like to mash up genres. It just I think that it gives you this sort of it's just a bigger palette to play with. And so he went away and came back with an idea that hit all of them. It's action, it's thriller, it's sci-fi, it's horror, and with a fairly strong dramatic through line as well. So it's just a bunch of stuff. And as far as how to juggle it, I do two things. I like, you look at each scene as its own entity, right? This is a scene, and how do you film this specific scene, and then you kind of zoom out and take a macro view and say, okay, now all of these scenes together, how do they flow? And that's how I kind of look at the overall story is from a director's standpoint. Is I start individually, and then I pull out and say, okay, now is there anything that needs to be adjusted in order to make it all work together, and sometimes in scenes and make sure that the tone works, right? Because I think that's a big part of the director's job, is making sure your tone is correct. And I'll sometimes there's a handful of jokes that got cut, and it's not because they weren't good or not because they weren't delivered well. It's just they didn't fit the tone of the movie, whereas other jokes did, and that's a very common thing. So but as far as juggling all the different aspects, you just try and make them feel like they belong, just try and make them feel make each scene feel like it belongs with the next one. So that there's not so we don't switch to a brightly lit comedy scene in the middle of this movie, right? You just want it all to feel like it all flows naturally from the beginning to the end.
Yep, makes sense. Well, and let me ask you, Mike, since you wrote the script, and obviously, you got a call, and he asked if there was something you could put together, and you knew that he likes mixing and mash and stuff together.
Right.
Did you have this idea already in your head at that time, and it was just waiting to be written until for someone to tell you to write it, or did you just think of it at that very moment? And was there any references from other movies or whatnot that help you continue with the script and get it to what it was?
I did not have this kind of like in my back pocket or sitting around ready to go. I'm like Chris in that, you know, I love a good horror movie, but why not have it be an action horror or an action sci-fi horror or, you know, whatever. So I like to kind of bleed in between genres as well. What I knew, since I was going to produce this film too, and Chris came to me as a producer as well, he said, you know, small cast, you know, one location ideally. We'll shoot, you know, the beginning in Atlanta, but most of it's going to have to be, you know, away from the city. And so, you know, I mean, there's a lot of Cabin in the Woods movies. There's a lot of, oh, we have to get out of the city. You know, we put 5 people in a cabin and then, you know, something happens. So that template is pretty well established. What I tried to do was to, you know, rearrange the pieces as I could and put a new spin on as much as I could. And the thing that kind of held everything together for me was the kind of the family tension, the fact that, you know, it's one thing when you get to pick the team that you're going to, you know, kind of wait out the apocalypse with or whatever, but when you show up and, you know, there's an estranged brother that you haven't seen or talked to in 20 years or whatever, that throws a monkey wrench in it. And you know, and that's what I like to do. I create characters and then I torture them for, you know, 95 to 100 pages, and then we just make a movie of that.
We had a question that came in from Facebook user Patrick. Maybe you can see who wrote that.
Andy Driscoll.
Andy, hey, that's from Inebriart podcast, I believe, right? Yeah. Did you have to cut anything for time that you wish could have been in the movie?
No, not on this one. In fact, honestly, if I were to go fiddle, and I'm not gonna, but if I were to go, I don't know. There might be a slight director's cut. We'll see. But if I were to go fiddle, I would probably shorten it just a hair. Like it's this one, the last one, I definitely we cut a couple things for time. This one was so tight. Like we, you know, and I'll talk a little bit about Michael's script again. Like the first, it was 3 drafts total. The first draft, the first 30 pages, we shot that. Like the first 30 pages that he showed up with in draft 1, we shot that. Like we didn't make any changes. The most of the changes in the next couple of drafts were very specifically to, you know, to tighten it up and get it ready for shooting in the second and third acts. But it's just a very compact script, a very you know, specific story with a specific direction, and you know, and I think for the most part it moves very, very fast, and there's not a lot of fat there, and so there's not much that we could have cut, honestly.
It's always nice tight script. Now, I found a couple of references. I don't know if these were intentional or not, but obviously the hitting of electronics always makes it work. You know, made me think of, you know, Back to the Future and, you know, Happy Days, of course, with the Fonz, you know, banging on the jukebox. But I was also thinking of the film Gaslight, because of the classic manipulative behavior that we saw from the brother there, whose name is completely escaping me. I have like 6 different things. Yes. Was that intentional, or is that just, you know, this is just how the script was written and you didn't really have anything specific in mind when you were creating this?
Well, I'll say that from the screenwriting perspective, there were a couple of homages, I suppose I'll say. There are a lot of films that kind of fit this mold that are favorites of mine. But yeah, I mean, it's some of it is it's just fun. It was, it was fun to put on the page that, the ham radio is not going to work until she smacks it. It was fun to write certain characters to kind of lean into certain tropes. And then, like I said before, I tried really, really hard to kind of swerve as much as I could. But they're tropes for a reason. They've been in 100,000 movies for a reason, and it was fun to just kind of throw some of those in there.
Well, I appreciate that they were there and they weren't super heavy-handed. It's like, okay, this is a classic one. Obviously the hitting of the electronics. I mean, that's everything. Some people do it over the top, like in, say, Armageddon, when he starts smashing the thing with the wrench.
Right.
But I think it was done, like the way it was done well, especially because you have someone who's like, oh, this is what I do. I'm good at electronics, but I'm not able to do this, so I'm going to have someone else do it for me. Why isn't this working? Oh, I'm so mad. Bam.
Right.
Now the radio works. Like that, I thought was a really nice touch.
Thank you. And I will say this. The relationship I was most worried about was the Allison and Jesse relationship. I'm not a woman.
Wait,
and
what?
Yeah, no. And so I tried really hard to write, and I hate this strong female character. How about complex female characters, right? I tried really hard to write complex female characters, and their relationship specifically has a lot of layers to it. There's a lot of layers, and I was so afraid that I didn't do it and that the words weren't on the page and all that kind of stuff. And Kat and Megan Hayes, who plays Jessie, they knocked it out of the park. Chris was showing me dailies, and I was like, yeah, okay, great, action scene, whatever. Show me the Alice and Jesse stuff. And it made me cry. And, so I was like, okay, if that's there, I think we've got the heart. So.
Catherine, I have a question for you. Basically, your character, as we learned at the very beginning, has been compromised or suspect due to losing her license as a medical professional when the movie starts, and eventually we learn more details and so forth. As an actress, how do you, I guess, put yourself in a position where there is someone that is compromised, such as your character that you played, Allison, and try to make that character sympathetic to the audience?
Well, it's interesting. My sister is actually a nurse, and my mother was a nurse. So I feel like we've had a lot of dinner table discussions about things that happen at hospitals and things around family members being near death and all of that stuff. And so it just is another one of those situations. And again, this is like the Praise Michael show, but really he deserves it because it was in the script that sometimes good people break rules because they're trying to do the right thing. And I think that that's just an interesting concept there. So it would have been hard to play probably, or harder, if Allison was a terrible person, but she's just a really good person who tried to do the right thing, and it broke a rule. And again, it's kind of going back again to what he was talking about too, just complex characters, complex stories, complex situations are interesting.
We had another question for Catherine that came in. Catherine, did you do any tactical or prepper training to prepare for your character?
Well, we did have some really great people who were consulting on the film as far as weapons and as far as some of the prepping aspect. But I will say that if any one of us on the cast or crew was a prepper, it would probably be, and I'm not a prepper like full time for real, but let me just put it this way. When the whole toilet paper shortage was happening, there was no danger over here because I I have water and toilet paper. And I'm really serious. I would say that Alex Zuka, who plays my brother, he and I are probably the most prepared. Although Chris, you might be too. But we had some great people consulting, and especially with some of the weapons stuff, we had great guys and a great stunt coordinating team that helped us to make everything as authentic as possible.
Yeah, Andy Rusk and Jason Keeler are our stunt coordinators, and if the apocalypse ever happens, I'm running straight for Andy's house. I'm not. I mean, that's no joke. I go right to him. Like, that's the safest place to be.
I have to say, my wife keeps on making fun of me because I keep on ordering it, and I think we're running low. But for the toilet paper thing in our garage, we got one section that's like 2 to ceiling. Because I don't go in the garage much, and I just think we're good by ordering.
Better to be over prepared than under prepared, I suppose.
Yeah,
like a line from the movie.
Yeah.
Whatever you need, take double.
Yep.
We did have another question, because that last question was from Andy, and this question is from Sandy.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Pat. Oops, sorry. Go ahead.
We're looking at the one on the screen, right?
Yep. Yes. How many days did it take to shoot, and what percentage of the footage was utilized in the film?
So the shoot days is an easy answer. We did this in basically 10 main shoot days and then 1.5 pickup days. And then which is ridiculous, by the way. You should never ever make a movie fast. And it's only because of some very specific and extraordinarily capable people that we were able to accomplish that. And then as far as what percentage of footage was utilized, I don't know. I mean, it's probably 50% ish. I mean, we don't have a ton of maybe 40. There's plenty of we do multiple takes, obviously, but I'm real specific about trying to pick up. Like, if I need to pick up something, I'm just, because of time, we're just picking up that section of the scene. We're not doing the whole scene over again for 2 or 3 lines or something like that. So it just depends. But it was not we didn't have 1,800 hours of footage to make a 90-minute film. We probably had 4.5, maybe 4 to 4.5 hours of footage.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, totally.
Chris, I have a question for you, based off of the footage and whatnot that you just mentioned. If folks bought the physical copy of the disc or even a VOD copy, does that include behind the scenes stuff, commentaries, or anything of that nature?
There's no behind the scenes footage. We actually didn't have a lot of that. That was just a necessity of moving quickly and a low budget. There's a great commentary on the DVD, however. If you buy the DVD, which you can get Amazon, it was in Walmart stores for a while. I think it's been out too long, so it's probably off the shelves by now. But Amazon, Walmart, BestBuy.com, Target.com, any of those .com places, you can pick it up. And it's got a great commentary where the 3 of us and our other producer, Stacy Palmer, just had a blast talking about the process.
Nice.
So one of the things I liked, and I like about a lot of films, and I think some folks could take a note on this, is the classic show don't tell. And I like the fact that you guys delivered some exposition without going over the top and giving the life story of the character. Like, when everybody's rushing out to the car, you see the knee brace. And, you don't have to get into, oh, well, I don't know if I can evacuate because, as you know, I tore my ACL 3 months ago. It's like, yeah, she would know that. She lives with you. You guys are engaged. There's no reason for you to say that. Right. But that subtle hint of, having the knee brace on, that was a nice touch. Now, initially, as I'm watching it, I'm like, gee, I wonder if he was in the Army, and I wonder if that's going to, come in handy later. I like the fact that you use that as a visual gag, because we had that scene with Harry later on in the film where he was like poking him in the chest, kind of to assert dominance. And I thought that was done well. It's like, okay, this seems a little ham-handed, a little out of place, but there's a reason for it. I get why they're doing that. It's a visual setup for something that's going to happen later. Because afterwards he changes his shirt and you don't see that anymore.
Right.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's again, that was part of that was just the fun of that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, when you're doing a movie like this, you lean into archetypes. You know, one of the reviews that I read of the film said that you know, if you're gonna ride out the apocalypse, you know, the best way to do that is with a trauma surgeon and her boyfriend who's, you know, a former army. And I was like, yeah, I chose that for a reason. You know, and the show don't tell, you know, this movie happens in the beginning of what is obviously going to be an apocalyptic event, and our characters don't know what's going on. And so it kind of helped to just have to focus on their world and what they would know. And you know, it's fun to set stuff up and pay it off. This was a fun script to write. This was a lot of fun for me to write. That's why, you know, we shot the first 30 pages, you know, that I wrote, because, you know, those first 30 pages just came out. But man, the second half of that first draft was terrible.
See, I like the fact that, you know, it's like you were just saying, like, they don't know what's going on. And we as the audience don't need to know what's going on. We just need to know how these characters are dealing with an unknown element. You know, the different stresses that they're having, you know, between, you know, the lack of communication, you know, the conspiracy theory, you know, recovering drug addict brother, you know, out in the middle of the woods, you know, the trauma of losing a member of their group, the, you know, just
wait, no one dies in this movie. What are you talking about? No one dies in this film.
Yeah,
I didn't say anybody died. I said they lost them.
That's fair. That's fair.
I was wondering, because part of this, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the game The Last of Us that came out a few years ago.
Oh yeah.
The opening of that game, trying to escape a big city, and you have the explosion in the distance. Was that like a little bit of an inspiration for you?
Totally. That kind of thing where, you know, I think Cloverfield did it really well. You know, that kind of, the world is imploding. Everything is falling right now, and I don't care what's going on with the military. I don't care, you know, who the bad guy is or what. This is my core group, and I love these people, and I care about these people, and I have to keep them safe. That's, you know, that was the kind of the driving force for this.
I think there's a lot to be said about that type of storytelling, because there's so many times where you'll see something, and sometimes it can be used in a good effect, like in, say, World War Z. You get to see what's going on around, and the character is using, you know, a character of Brad Pitt's character is looking around and ascertaining information. So it's like it's not affecting him, but he's learning about the situation based on his background. But so often we see, like in a disaster movie, where it's like, okay, here are our main characters, but here's a bunch of other people dealing with this this catastrophe, whatever it happens to be, you know, tidal waves or Sharknadoes or whatever it happens to be. But in this case, you're only dealing with your characters. And I think that's where having an independent or low budget film really works towards the storytelling aspect, where it's like, okay, we have to figure out what to do. We have limited supplies. Things are going wrong. How do we fix them? Nobody trusts each other. I got, a little bit of a, The Thing vibes as well, with stuff going on.
Yay!
That was extraordinarily intentional.
Yes, that was very intentional. I don't say that out loud because the thought of comparing something that I wrote to, The Thing, the greatest film from my favorite director, that I couldn't do that. Chris did that in an interview while I was sitting right next to him that night. And I was like, shut up, what are you doing? Don't fucking say that. But yeah, that was very intentional. The whole "who can you trust" kind of thing.
Yeah, you can. It's tough not to be inspired, and when you're a writer or a director or an actor, and you've been so steeped in film history, and you're such a fan of specific, people that do the same job as you. It's almost like, how can I pay homage to this person and show them how much their work meant to me by bringing a little bit? So it's like, that kind of reminds me of this, without being a blatant ripoff. And I think you guys did that really, really well. Like, some of the shots from the film, the intrigue, the way it was shot. So Chris, your directorial style really worked for me as far as creating that sense of mystery and distrust and what was going on. Obviously we've been talking a lot about the writing, and Catherine, the way your character went from, I almost want to say like a Florence Nightingale type to Sarah Connor. Like, there's such a wide swath of inspirations and vibes that I get from this film, without it being cheesy and over the top. Like, they're very believable. It's not like, I'm in the woods and I'm lost all alone. I found this gun. Suddenly I'm Rambo. It's like, no, clearly there's a background here, and everything gets set up and paid off. And I love the way the film ended.
If I could extend on what Pat said and ask Catherine a question about that. Obviously, this is a leading role, so it would be very difficult to not take it, and it's a great role anyway. But the question I would have asked otherwise would have been, what drew you to the role? But obviously, being a lead role, that alone, I would think, would do it. So my question is what aspects of the character that did you enjoy the most? Was it similar to the things that Pat just said, such as the change from the caring nurse type folk all the way to, as he mentioned, like a Sarah Connor?
Well, and first of all, I definitely wouldn't just take anything just because it was a lead. Believe me, there are things I've even said. I'm not even gonna finish the script. But this was a great script, as we've said. But just on a personal note, I love this kind of story. This is kind of one of my favorite kind of stories. I'm a huge fan of The Walking Dead. I'm a huge fan of The Thing. I love movies. I love apocalyptic movies. I love even just, in the real sense, playing the game of like, okay, well, when the zombie apocalypse comes, which friends am I going to call, and who am I going to meet up with, and who are going to avoid because they're not going to be helpful in the situation. And I'm always telling people, like, you better know what you can do. And if you're not going to be good at any of the obvious things, like, you better know how to garden or something, because, you need a reason to be there. But so I really enjoyed that aspect. And again, I love the idea that, what changes us, sometimes for the good and sometimes for the bad. And I guess more than maybe changes us, you could say what reveals us and who we are stressful situations. And Allison is someone that under the stress becomes stronger and even better. Other people in this film, not so much.
We had a good question that came in a little similar, talking about apocalyptic movies. Other than this movie, what are your favorites? And we can do this for everybody. Your favorite post-apocalyptic movie. And Catherine, since you say you're a fan of them, why don't we start with you?
Well, I don't know if I'm saying just post-apocalyptic movies. I sort of feel like, again, I'm a huge Walking Dead fan, and I know that's a TV show, but I would say that was probably one of the most meaningful for me. There was something about it being set in Georgia and being from Georgia that felt really familiar. Stephen King's book, The Stand, is just one of my favorite things ever. And I think there have been 2 iterations of that on film now, but I still like the book the best. And then in some weird ways, I think there's post-apocalyptic aspects of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And that's one of the reasons that I love that so much too.
Nice. Same question for you, Michael.
The Stand is obviously, I think I know that Chris and our friendship started over our mutual love of Stephen King. So it's good to know that you're in that group as well, Kat. So The Stand, definitely, as far as books. As far as movies are concerned, I love Mad Max Fury Road. It's so pretty. And that world feels real, so that's probably my favorite. I'm also a big fan of the Book of Eli. I really like the visual, the complete desaturation, and it's Denzel can do no wrong. So
and if I can find the right button, there we go. What about you, Chris?
Well, so to our question, the person who asked this question, the Postman, I'm a fan of the Postman as well. And I saw that in the theater, which probably just aged me a little bit. But I dig the Postman. There's a movie called Reign of Fire.
2002.
It's kind of like a post-apocalyptic. Once again, mashing genres together. It's a post-apocalyptic dragon movie, and it's kind of great. The Stand, the book, and I think that's a good distinction. I like the Mick Garris movie, but I think it's flawed. The current adaptation that's running on CBS All Access is more flawed so far. I think I'm not loving it, unfortunately. But the book is an excellent example of genre.
I think Philip will agree. Well, partially agree on The Stand for the new show. What about
the new show's not too good. No.
Yeah,
stick with the book.
Yeah,
as Kat said. Yeah.
What about you, Phil? What's one of your favorite apocalyptic movies?
Movies. Oh, right. Well, Snowpiercer is pretty good, right? That was fairly recent. I like the Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead remake, written by James Gunn. That was a good one too. So those are the 2 that kind of stick out for me. Obviously, The Thing, because technically that could become one depending on what happens. So.
Good point,
Patrick.
I was honestly going to bring up Snowpiercer because I love that movie, but to kind of go with a similar, one of those close yet so far away type of segues. Also, Waterworld. I know it was panned by the critics, but I enjoyed it. I liked that concept. So Waterworld and Snowpiercer are a couple of ones that I would go with. I love The Stand, and I will, every time I read the Dark Tower series, I will stop in the middle of Wizard and Glass, and I will pick up The Stand and read that. But I also agree, Reign of Fire was amazing. Christian Bale, Gerard Butler, and Matthew McConaughey. Absolutely. I saw it at the drive-in with Lilo and Stitch.
Oh, wow.
That's a double feature.
A lot of great titles came up. I mean, obviously, Book of Eli was amazing. Reign of Fire, I love that as well. Armageddon. Postman, I did see in the theater as well, Chris. So I'm right there with you. It's a lot. Day After Tomorrow was another good one too.
Oh yeah.
Was that the one with the lead actress and
Jake Gyllenhaal?
Her father with the tidal wave coming. She stood in front of it.
No, that was Deep Impact.
Deep Impact. Okay, yeah. The
Téa Leoni.
Yep.
Yes, yeah.
Day After Tomorrow was Jake Gyllenhaal, Dennis Quaid, and Emmy Rossum, who was also excellent in Phantom of the Opera.
Nice.
Mystic River too. She was good.
Oh yeah.
I know we are coming close on time. Patrick, was there any Padme Star Wars questions you wanted to get in before we?
I do. I have a friend of mine who does a podcast called Force Insensitive, and he is probably the he is one of several people on the show, but he's probably the most knowledgeable Star Wars fan I have ever met. And I messaged him earlier because he hasn't been feeling well, and I thought I'd try to brighten up his day a little bit. And I said, if you have a question, let me know. And he did come up with a question for you, Catherine. It's a two-parter, but I hope you don't mind. He says, what was it like working with Filoni's casting department? Did you realize at the time how epic the voices of the show would be? Also, with the recent additions of the voice cast from Clone Wars and Rebels appearing live action in The Mandalorian, such as Clancy Brown, and your Anakin, Matt Lantner, being live action characters, as well as Katie Sackhoff, do you hope, expect, or wish, or even to be contacted about a role in The Mandalorian or any of the upcoming spin-offs?
Obviously, I would hope and wish, and that would be great. I don't know if that will ever happen. Dave is very deliberate, and no one ever really knows what he's thinking and why, but he does. So, yeah, it was really exciting to see Matt Lanter in there. But Matt has a really big on-camera career of his own already going, so I think that is a helpful factor as well. But as far as when we were auditioning originally for it, I was really new, and so I didn't even originally have an audition, and my agent had called the casting director and said, you really have to bring this girl in. They were bringing in people from all the big, agencies, including On Camera and stuff. And so I really didn't know how big it was. I just knew that I loved Star Wars and that I felt like I understood the character. So I did the audition, left, weeks passed. I was still like wishing on pennies, saying prayers. And then I got a call one day from my agent, and she was like, "Hi, Padme." And I was like, "You better not be kidding me." And it was like really, life-changing and such an honor. But I found out later that they had pretty much decided on me at the casting, but there was so much other casting going on and so much fine-tuning of things, and probably people who are Star Wars fans know that what they wanted to do with Ahsoka had gone through changes, and Ashley actually had originally been called in to read for Padme. But so a lot of stuff happened, and I'm sitting there thinking, oh, I didn't get it. And meanwhile, I found out later I did get it, but there was just a lot of other fish to fry before they told everybody.
Yeah, I definitely think that your voice and your presence. I'm trying to come up with the right word, and my articulation is failing me at the moment. But you do a great job of conveying, and voice acting is very difficult. And the folks who do it and do it well, obviously are very talented at what they do. And I remember talking to, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Charlie Adler, but someone
Oh, sure. I love Charlie. He's hysterical.
Chatting with him, we asked him, he said, what makes someone a good voice actor? And he said, first and foremost, you have to be a good actor.
Right.
Because you have to be able to get your intentions, because people can't see you, obviously. They're only hearing your voice. So do you approach that the same as you would approach, an on-camera role?
Because I came from an on-camera background, I think that for me, a lot of it's the same. And it's just about what tools do I have to use in this particular project. And the tools are different when it's voiceover versus when it's on camera. But there are people, and I always bring up Corey Burton, who he's a true voice talent, and he can sit in a chair, not move, and go from a teeny tiny little creature all the way up to Cad Bane, then, Zero the Hutt. So everyone's process in that way is different, but he still essentially is just a very good actor and great at conveying the emotions and the intentions of whoever he's playing. And I definitely think it's a misnomer about voice work that it's somehow easier than on camera. Denzel Washington is famous for that one tear, which conveys a lot, and you don't get to do that in voiceover. So it really does all have to come through vocally. Not that I'm, insulting Denzel. He's the best, but I'm saying, there's less you can even do in voiceover. And one of the things, speaking of stuff about that though, too, with the Clone Wars specifically, because they did a lot of videoing of our faces originally. And there are moments where the expressions of those characters, the animators did such a stunning job of bringing them to life so that my mom would watch Padme and be like, that's your sad face.
I was going to ask if there was any type of like motion capture or way that they were able to.
They had cameras right there, in our faces in the beginning, especially in the first seasons, and they were being sent to the animators in Singapore.
Now, last question about this, because I'm sure you get these questions all the time, but are you one of those folks who, like, we've seen some of the pictures coming out with Pedro Pascal, holding a pillow to represent, the child and, doing stuff. Do you ever use props when you're doing like maybe an action scene? Like, are you holding a replica blaster or anything like that? Or is it just all, just you?
Well, first of all, I'm holding a real blaster, not a replica.
Oh, sorry. Well, I didn't know how lenient they were with blasters on set.
Yeah. But I am one of those actors, and I will definitely create something physical for myself because that helps me. But again, there are other people who don't do that, and I am known for knocking into the podium where our scripts are, because I am physical, so it's not always the best thing. But yeah, as far as if there's any kind of a prop that could help, even what you're wearing can help, and I like to use all those tools. Plus, it's really fun.
What do you prefer more, voice acting in video games or voice acting in animation?
Well, I was just talking about video games today, and a well-written video game is for an actor. It's the equivalent of doing Shakespeare at some great theater. You have an arc for your character that is, long and depthful, and you get to spend a lot of time with them and often have tons and tons of dialogue. So if the story's good and the writing is good, then I really enjoyed video games. I don't do as much of them anymore, but the ones that I do have a lot of meaning for me, and for that reason. And then animation just varies drastically. Like my show on Nickelodeon, The Loud House, is completely different than working on something like The Clone Wars. It's just, again, different stories and different audiences. But for me, when the stories are good and the characters are good, it's great fun, whatever it is.
Do you have... sorry, Leo. Do you have any advice for, say, someone who would be interested in trying to break into voice acting? Like any tips, like places to learn from, anything?
D. Bradley Baker, all of the clones, has an amazing website. I believe it's called soyouwanntobeavoiceactor.com. It's something very quick, very close to that. It wouldn't be hard to find. But he's put a whole bunch of stuff there for people who are really serious about trying to get into the business. Because of technology, there are a lot of opportunities today. But I was just saying this the other day. Like anything else, you really have to be prepared to work hard, and you really have to understand that there are other people already working in the industry, like a D. Bradley Baker or Gray Delisle, who can do all these characters. And so they don't need you just because, someone told you that you had an interesting voice. And so if you're not willing to work hard and learn the craft and, do all that stuff, it's probably not going to be very successful or lucrative for you.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are, and it's a passion, then definitely check out D. Bradley Baker's website. And even in your own area, you don't have to move to Hollywood or New York at this point. And so there's opportunities all around, but it's not easy. Like some people I think are like, oh, I'll just do a little voiceover. And we're always like, will you just do a little voiceover? And for my part too, I fell into it accidentally. I still to this day feel super blessed. I was pounding the pavement the other way, trying to be an on-camera actor, and working really hard, working a bunch of different jobs and having some success, but not, enough to change my life. And so voiceover kind of came out of nowhere for me. But again, I think if I hadn't have been doing that hard work, putting that into the pipeline, that it probably wouldn't have happened.
Oh yeah, you're 100% right. Like, the two names that you brought up, D. Bradley Baker and Gray Delisle, I'm huge fan of Maurice LaMarche. I love
James Arnold Taylor.
Yep. I got a chance to meet Maurice, super nice guy. He did the Rosebud Frozen Peas bit for me, which was, but folks like, Billy West,
Tom Kenny, who was in the intro.
Yeah.
Tom Kenny. Again, like, people don't understand, I think, like what you're saying, like how difficult it can be, and there's a lot of folks that are out there that, have been doing this a long time. And, while you might look at someone like, I'm totally blanking on his name, Rob DiMaggio.
Yeah.
Who has a very distinctive sound to his characters.
Wait, we mean John DiMaggio.
John, yeah. I don't know why the hell I called him Rob. Maybe I was thinking, I don't know. Yeah, John DiMaggio. He has a very distinctive sound to his characters, but at the same time, he has a lot of range where if you were to look at all the different characters he plays, you're like, oh, well, I could do one voice over and over again. It's like, yeah, but it's not the same. There are subtle nuances. There's differences. After a while, you can tell certain people are, like Mark Hamill has done a bunch of different voices. And if you're really listening, you can tell who he is. Phil Lamar, another guy that I believe you worked with.
Yes, I love Phil. He's just such a great guy too. But on the John DiMaggio thing, I have to say, literally what you're saying. He works on the Nickelodeon show. I work on Loud House sometimes. And a lot of times he's a very gruff, kind of loud character that you would expect. But I worked with him this week, and there's another character that he plays on the show that when it came up his time to do it, I was like, wait, that's John?
Mm-hmm.
And you just wouldn't know it. And yeah, it's the same with a lot of people. And so the producers know that they can hire these people to just come in and knock it out of the park and, be cordial, and it makes their life easy. So it's definitely like you have to be professional, and you have to work hard and hopefully be humble, because there's some really talented people out there already.
Yeah, they'll blow you. It, like, for every aspiring person, it's like, hey, Tim Curry's done this, Mark Hamill's done this. It's like, are you better than them?
Yeah.
But thank you for that. I definitely
Sure.
appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I know we are running a little bit off time. Did Phil or Patrick, any other questions before I wrap things up?
I think I've taken enough people's time up.
I just wanted to follow up with Catherine on that. Even though you're a hugely accomplished voice actress, do you love video or in front of the camera stuff even more? Because obviously you said you started doing that, and then you've just fell into voice acting. So I was just curious.
I honestly have grown to love both of them. Like I said, for me, it's about storytelling. It's always been about storytelling. I used to love to, read books out loud or run around and pretend like I was in my own action movie, and someone was chasing me. And as my career has progressed, and you see things that's not very good, you get scripts that aren't very good, that whether it's a game or a film or something TV, it's really when the story is good and the character's good, it's an absolute joy. And when it's not, it's a job.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, we love everything we do, and we love Haven Zen, and I want to urge everybody definitely check out the show notes down below or above, depending on where you're watching or listening to us, and you'll find all the information for Haven Zen and all our guests as well. And so we'll wrap things up, and I'm going to ask one final question as we do the roundup. What is a movie in your top 10 that you think somebody will say, really, that movie? And also, where do you like people following and interacting with you? And we'll start with Catherine.
You can find me. Really, I'm only on Instagram at this point, and it's just at Cat Taber, CATTABER. Hopefully I just spelled my name right. And one of my all-time favorite movies that I absolutely love is Legend, the Ridley Scott one with Tom Cruise and elves and dwarves, and people are like, really? And I'm like, yes.
Michael, same questions for you.
I am on Instagram and Twitter, both at Michael2H. That's the number 2. Movie that people, you know what? Okay. I love Pitch Perfect.
Oh, nice.
I love Pitch Perfect. It is such a good, tight script, and they're just so cute, and they sing, and it makes my heart feel good. So yeah, Pitch Perfect. I don't think a lot of people look at me and go, "Oh yeah, that's a Pitch Perfect fan."
If you like Pitch Perfect, the evil blonde girl in that movie had a TV show that was really good. I totally forgot the name of it, but it's another singing type of TV show.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I will check that out.
Yeah. Chris, same questions for you.
Oh, yeah. Immediately Over the Top.
Oh,
nice.
Oh,
yeah.
Lincoln Hawk.
Lincoln Hawk, Over the Top. Love it.
Yeah.
Love everything about that ridiculous movie.
And where do you like people following you?
So yeah, Instagram and Facebook, Chris Ethridge Film on both.
Very cool. We're just binging Cobra Kai, and I think they brought up Over the Top in one of the episodes.
Yeah, and they shoot that here in Georgia as well.
Really?
Yeah. In fact, let's see. So I'll tell you if I've got a minute. I'll tell you a fun story. I was watching, I think, the second episode of this new season, and there's an actor a voice actor actually. He's a voice actor in our film. He was on camera in Cobra Kai. But he plays the military radio announcer. His name's Derek Russo. He's got a very deep, low voice. And I was watching the second episode, but I got distracted, and I think I looked down for like a text or an email or something, and all of a sudden I heard this voice, and I looked up. I was like, "That's Derek. Where is he?" And it was there's a fight scene in an auto shop, and he's one of those guys. So yeah, a lot of Atlanta actors are in that show, and including some that we've worked with before.
Awesome.
And it's just a great show.
It is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we just binged the first 2 seasons, me and my wife, and we just started season 3 tonight. Yeah, absolutely amazing show. And Patrick?
For me, Chris brought up Over the Top, so I will see I will call your Over the Top and go No Holds Barred.
Ooh, there you go.
Movie that my brothers and I watched quite a bit when we were kids. That along with Suburban Commando. As far as following us, you can find us at Throwdown Thursday Podcast at throwdownthursdaypodcast.com, which has all the articles linked to our social media. You can also find us on YouTube at Throwdown Thursday Podcast. Tomorrow night we have our live NHL preview show. I don't know if Emma Extreme will be joining us, but I hope so because she's sick and knows nothing about hockey. So that'll be a lot of fun. But yeah, you can find me on the Louder Sports Show every Friday. You can find all our videos on our YouTube channel, and I think that's about it. Yeah, you can all our social medias on throwdownthursdaypodcast.com. Obviously, you can find me here, and you can find me on Throwdown Thursday Podcast every Thursday. Yes, Thursdays.
Sure about that?
Oh, I need a nap.
Philip.
You can find me at darkdiscussions.com, which is an all-genre website with news, columns, whatever. It basically is updated daily. So if you follow genre news, you should come to darkdiscussions.com daily. Also, I'm on a few podcasts, obviously the Dark Discussions podcast. I'm also on a podcast called Don't Tell Me, I'll Tell You, the Stand podcast, based off of the CBS All Access TV show The Stand. The Stand series isn't too good, but the podcast is great. Also, we're doing a Discovery of Witches, Demons, and Vampires podcast, which is following season 2 of a Discovery of Witches television show. So that's where you can find me.
Okay. And for me, just Google Leo Pond. You find a bunch of stuff. Could be true, could be not. I'm not going to say which is which, but I run a little network here called the Dorkening Podcast Network, which you can find almost 30 shows on the network. Absolutely insane, including the loudest sports show and Throw Down Thursday. Also, the show was Perfect Harmony, and it's Anna Camp, and she stars with Bradley Whitford, Michael. So Perfect Harmony. Yeah, absolutely love it. And for me, a lot of cheesy movies, but off the top of my head, Twister.
Twister's a great movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't believe in guilty pleasure movies or anything like that. You like what you like. That's why there's chocolate and vanilla.
Oh, totally.
Exactly.
I want to urge everybody, definitely check out Haven's End, out now on VOD and physical media. Information and show notes down below or up above. And follow our awesome guests. I want to thank you all for your time this evening. Have a most excellent day. We'll catch you guys later.
Thank you guys.
Thanks.